we're welcoming back two absolute legends to the channel. Sam Tighe, first of all, was on the channel, I think maybe a week or two ago, and he made us two promises. Well, I don't know if there were promises. One of the promises was that the Atletico Bilbao shirt was going to go up in the background, and there it is hanging beneath him, or behind him, I should say. And also, the Dinamo Moscow were going to come out the stalls, kick ass and take names and everything in between. And Sammy Boy secured a number one spot in U23 Limited? Or Challenger, sorry.
It was Challenger, yeah.
Off the back of the Dinamo. Sam, welcome back. Buzzing?
Absolutely buzzing, mate. Yeah, it was awesome. I could not believe my eyes as the goals kept flying in. I was quite hungover on the Sunday when all of this was happening. And I did have to pinch myself a few times. I've been to a wedding the day before, so it was just making sure. And I thought I'd made an absolutely horrific mistake as well. I didn't quite go for the 5-man Dinamo stack. I took 4 and Victor Klassen from Copenhagen. And I was actually chatting to Josh on Discord. I was like, mate, I've messed this up big time. And you were the one, weren't you? You went, nah, not if Klassen bangs 100.
Yeah.
And he did it. So unbelievably, I think I had 4 players that hit 98 or more, and 2 of them were hundreds. I had Zakarian, Smolov around the 90, 96, 98 area, and then Morrow, who I left out, was 100, and then Klassen backed it up with 100. So yeah, about 472 points. And bear in mind, you know, I've spent all of last season just chasing the threshold on the rare side. I'd never actually won a rare card. I'd won 3 tier 3 limiteds in my entire time on So Rare. To bustle in there with a podium and then a first, and then obviously the prize that comes with it was pretty special.
Yeah, and like the cards, like you got a fantastic card in the Diego Souza. But one thing that I always find, especially when I talk to people that have just won, is you overlook the ETH that you get, you overlook the cash. You know, what have you done with that? Was that a withdrawal, or did you go buy something?
That has
What's one of them?
Literally got spending about 4 hours. It was a Diogo Costa, that I got as the prize, the limited Porto goalkeeper. So I spoke to a few people. Was like, should I just sell him, or should this be the start of something a little bit more fun, which would be an under 23 limited campaign? And I think the idea of the game is to have fun, right? And to get excited about a few things. So I decided to go with, I'm now a limited under 23 whale. You now have to address me appropriately by my new title. And I basically just spent all the ETH on that. I've got Costa as the building block. I already had Zakarian, so I added Anthony from Ajax,
Nice.
Sergio Gomez from Anderlecht, and I'm basically about to buy Gedson Fernandez as well. So yes, I'm going to have a bit more fun with that one. I've just spent it all on fun cards. I just want to join in with you guys.
Yeah, that's lovely, man. And like, is it Zakarian, or is it Zakarian, as I normally refer to him? Like, I don't know what's right. I don't speak Russian, but he was amazing for me in under 23 limited last season. So that's 100% a card that will complement your cost. That's a snag.
Yeah, should be fine. So I already had like the goalkeeper in the midfield. And I was like, okay, probably only need 3-4 pieces here. Not too bad. Spoke to a few people, got some recommendations. Off we go. But yeah, the ETH, man, I'd actually got it completely wrong as well. I told people that I'd won 0.2 because So Red Data was telling me that I'd won 0.2. But I got 0.35. In addition to the threshold at 0.38, so 0.038, and Costa, who was worth about 800 quid. So I was like, hang on a minute, I've just won over $1,000. This is ridiculous. Now, obviously, I didn't win over $1,000 because I kept Costa and spent all the money. But but ultimately, I was given like, you know, over $1,000's worth of stuff, which is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. And also, like, welcoming back to the channel, we've got legend that is Josh Forth. Now, recently on the channel, we also had Tekkers on the channel, and he was telling us that he was going to kick ass and take names in the specialist, and he went away and done that with some of his pieces as well. Josh and Tekkers are doing a lot of content on the podcast front and the YouTube front. It'll all be linked in the description below. I highly recommend you check that out. Josh, welcome back to the channel, my man. How have you been?
Yeah, thanks, Quinny. Yeah, good to be back on the channel, mate. Thanks very much. And yeah, I've just been sort of kicking around. Start of the European season has been good fun. Sort of getting back into SO5, which is always nice after my summer break, my vacation. So yeah, I got a couple of nice finishes to start things off, and this weekend is looking very nice, and then the one after is the big one for me because I get Ajax back, so that's good fun always.
Oh, nice. I think between the three of us, we've all had a relatively barren summer in terms of like being competitive, getting cards and all that kind of stuff. Also, Sam, you're kind of evolving from like that ETH bashing kind of stage. And we've all spent so much time and energy prepping for the new season. And then yesterday we had the scoring matrix change. And it's kind of been quite divisive over the timeline in different places I'm checking out. My first thoughts was I didn't think it was too big of a negative impact on many things, but I'm kind of coming around on a few different subjects on that matter. Were you guys, how did you take on the scoring matrix on first glance?
Yeah, I don't think it's that much different, is it? Like, I think lots of people are like, this card's going to be amazing now with the new scoring matrix, and I think like Trent is obviously the main one. I don't know. Like, it looks like obviously Trent's going to be better, and he's probably the biggest card which has the most impact. But for most cards, I don't think you're going to see too much difference. Like from the data they put out, it's like a ±2 on average to player scores. So yeah, I think you're gonna like the good players are still going to be good. I don't think this like breaks the wheel so much. But yeah, obviously, nice to have some tweaks, I think, and always good for them to be trying to progress and to make a more balanced and innovative game with realistic scoring changes.
Yeah, I also went through my gallery like based on Sorare data, and obviously they've now produced that toggle, right, where you can look at the old scores versus the new scores, which is very welcome.
Yes.
And I just flicked through all my players, and I was just like, all right, most of them are getting either like a 2-point on average upgrade or decrease. So pretty much exactly in line with what Josh is saying. I've got a couple ones that look like they're going to do a bit better. Any fullbacks that I have, which is not very many for obvious reasons, because been based on the other matrix. But Thierry Correa at Valencia may now not be totally rubbish, which would be nice because he's a good player. There's a few of those. The only one I actually had a massive downgrade on was Keylor Navas. Really suffered, but they looked like there might have been a bit of a bug on the scoring charts because he got a 0 for Costa Rica's win over New Zealand to qualify for the World Cup when I had him in the lineup, and it was more like a 75. So that's going to have a massive impact on the L5, and maybe that was it. So yeah, ultimately not too much difference. I think it's pretty welcome. I'm largely in agreement with the fact that most of it needed to be done. I think the penalty on fullbacks to the possession losses was so severe that it really did ruin the enjoyment of having a player like Hakimi or Trent, or to an extent sometimes Theo Hernandez. That was never fair. And it's really important that those players are desirable, expensive, coveted, and also some of the most fun players to own, because they're some of the most impactful players in real life. And one of the things that they led with on the scoring update was we've tried to bring things more in line with your real life football experience. And I actually do think that rings relatively true through the entire thing.
I'm just looking through this toggle. I think it's absolutely amazing. I seen actually HD did the tweet saying that he'd been up all night cracking the whip on it, and they ceased to amaze again. Fantastic effort. I think the main thing I'm hoping to see maybe some contrition with, it kind of comes back in with that defender aspect of it, is I think the goals conceded is a bit it's a bit heavy. You know what I mean? 4 goals a hit is a bit much. I kind of thought when I was kind of reflecting on it and listening to some of our content after doing John's stuff and whatever, and listening to messages of people that have done all the kind of extrapolation, maybe something like maybe the first goal for everyone, goalkeepers and defenders, just being a free hit, because like conceding the first goal, I can understand like if you concede the second goal, maybe taking away 3 or 4 points, I can get that for certainly players in defence. But the first goal, it does feel like almost your AA for most players is not 35 anymore. It's actually 31, because most players will concede a goal. So you're starting away straight away based on 31 rather than 35. Was there any changes that jumped out to you guys that you'd like to see, or anything in particular that seemed out of place?
Yeah, I think I'd sort of agree. I think they maybe could have done more instead of like penalising defenders' scores. Maybe it's like just add additional points in other areas. If the thought process is that defenders were overpowered basically, and that they've made this this change to like double the amount of AA they're hit by when they concede a goal, to sort of like try and balance them. I don't know whether maybe they could have just added more sort of bonus points to midfielders and forwards. But then again, I suppose, they have to keep scores relatively stable with thresholds in play and that sort of thing as well. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think anything really massively jumped out at me. I think, like you say, the goals conceded thing was one that sort of I looked at and initially was like, is this is this going to be detrimental to sort of like the majority of players, like you say? And I think obviously like the answer is probably yes. I think it also maybe sort of like widens the gap between your elite players. You know, if you have a team that did sort of what Ajax did last year, where they, I think Pasveer started 25 games and kept 17 clean sheets, you know, a goalkeeper like that is going to be very like ridiculously strong against the rest of the population. And similar with the defenders, like, you know, your Ajax again, like I'm not saying Ajax are going to do it again this year, but if you have a team that goes on a run like that, like those defenders are going to be extremely powerful, just because they're not getting the, like everyone else's scores are being diminished by conceding goals, but if they're not conceding goals, theirs isn't, right? And then they're also benefiting from the less possession loss and those sorts of things as well. So yeah, I think it maybe sort of widens the gap a little bit between the elite defenders and the average defenders, like your defenders on bad teams. And defenders almost become a bit more of like you're rooting for the whole defense rather than your defender now. Because, you know, if the defense goes and concedes 3 goals, like even if your guy's churning in tackles and interceptions, etc., he's still got to get over minus 12 AA. And like that's a lot of points, right? Like, so I think, yeah, it sort of becomes defenders get more attached to the team.
Triple to break even.
Yeah, exactly, right. So defenders get a bit more attached to the teams they play in, and you need to be backing defenders that have a good defensive unit rather than just defenders that can mammoth like win duels and tackles and, you know, and all that jazz. So yeah, I think that was my takeaway that was my like main takeaway. I don't know what your thoughts were, Sam.
So, I mean, I think I roughly agree with the idea that a defender's ability to score should be at least loosely connected to the defense that they're in.
Yeah, sure.
And it does bring it in line with, like, a lot of these changes actually have brought it more in line with what you would expect from like a pretty standard fantasy Premier League game, whereby like the team concedes, everyone's clean sheet has been wiped. And that is kind of the feeling I'm getting from this to an extent, because I mean, I've got a Jean-Charles Castelletto at Nantes. He's a good scorer, not exceptional, but he's good. There were a couple of games last year where Nantes conceded 3 goals, or maybe even 4 goals, and he had a 55 or a 60. I think he got a 63 in one where they lost 3-2. And while I was obviously delighted about that, because he's my player, I was a bit like, well, they've conceded 3 goals. How's he got 63? This doesn't really, like, at a certain point, that doesn't necessarily make that much sense. I wonder if it could have just gone to -3, not -4. It does feel a tiny bit excessive, but it is what it is. And I do think they've got an eye on stacks there, defensive stacks, and they're trying to rip those down where possible. Like if you've got Pasveer and you've got Timber, and you go and pick up, say, like Owen Wijndal or something like that, and Ajax concede a goal, you just lost 12 points. And that hurts, but it just jeopardizes that kind of approach. And we've seen some of the gameplay mechanics they've introduced recently. It does look like they're railing against stacks in a very quiet and considered way. But the one thing that actually jumped out to me, Quinny, to go back to the kind of the original question, was they've adjusted the goalkeeper sweeping from 5 to 3, but they've left the smother at 5. I just thought that was a bit weird. If you're going to change the sweep, you might as well change the smother. A smother is obviously useful, but sweeping is a massively important part of the modern game. And I don't get it. I just don't get why you would change one and not the other. I just feel like they're about, well, sweeping definitely isn't less valuable than smothering, in my opinion, in terms of like the real life experience, to sort of bring that back to what they opened the conversation with. I didn't really understand why you change one and not the other. I actually think they should both be 3.
It's to try and nerf the goalkeepers on the higher power teams, I think, Sam. If you look at Manuel Neuer and Alisson's keeper sweeper stats, they're a lot higher than, think of random mid-table French league goalie, because their teams generally play higher up the pitch, and therefore if balls do get kicked over the top, they are in more likely position to sweep. So yeah, I think like with the new changes penalising mid to lower table goalies, essentially, like, you know, conceding more goals, I think they probably didn't want to like overdo it and make the really expensive, powerful goalkeepers even more so, essentially.
I mean, yeah, maybe that's pretty fair. I just feel like Alisson is an amazing goalkeeper. A big part of what makes him amazing is that ability to sweep up. And he's one of the best players in the world as a result of the fact that he is so good at that and so different to everybody else. And that's suddenly less valuable in an update that is branded as this matrix is now closer to what you would see in real life. That just jarred with me on the communication versus what they've actually done. So yeah, that was the kind of one that I would have picked out. I'm excited about the fullbacks becoming real options again outside of like 2 or 3 of them. That was my main takeaway. I don't care about the possession buff on the, Timber's now only going to get 8 points for his 95 passes rather than 9. I don't care about that. That's probably necessary at the end of the day. The real one there is the error leads to shot at centre back is now a big problem. And again, you take it back to bringing the matrix in line with what you're talking about in real life. We all love a centre-back who's flawless, who doesn't make mistakes. Now, it's even more important that you scout your players and make sure that these guys aren't loose cannons. They're not making errors. They're not causing themselves problems, because that may now be appropriately punished in a way that wasn't before.
How many times have you seen that? Oh, sorry, Quinny, go on, son. No. Oh, I was just going to say, Quinny, obviously you've been playing Sorare forever. How many times have you seen an error led to shot on one of your defenders?
Not that often, to be quite honest. It's because, again, some of these statistics, that's what I think about the keeper sweeper. Like outside of Alisson, players getting credited with it is kind of randomish, So I think with some of these stats, like how frequently they come up and how frequently they impact a game week, I don't know really how powerful the stats were. And even I think with some of them, like the ambiguous ones are the ones for a lot of headaches. And I know keeper sweepers ones that I see on the timeline quite often, like, oh, why does this not count from some people? So if it's worth a few less points, maybe there's a little bit less, kind of jeopardy on it getting scored or not, I suppose. But I think, error led to shot's not one I've caught sight of very often, if ever. Oh, but it must have happened. But
you get error leads to shot on a goalkeeper much more.
Yeah, I've had that. Yeah. Like the spell a save, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
If it's a rebound kind of stuff, because that's an error they didn't catch.
All my goalkeepers are rubbish, so I get that all the
time. I think.
And speaking of rubbish goalkeepers, I think I'm in trouble because I've got a player. I've got an Austrian. Josh has been taking a piss out of me for this. I've got an Austrian goalkeeper who's just on a bad team, and they're going to concede 3 a lot, and his decisive score is now more like, well, what would it be? He's going to go down to 15, and he's going to lose 9 points. So he starts on 6.
Ouch. Another thing that I seen come up in, I think it was the live chat with John last night, which kind of ties into what you're saying there, Sam, about those kind of moderate, cheap goalkeepers, actually what their scoring potential will be, is it might actually now be a wee bit harder to achieve ETH in All-Star Rare with even with the removal of commons, but even with your rare goalkeeper now, because those scores you're talking about, that's common goalkeeper scores.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I mean, genuinely, like, he's not going to start on 6, obviously, but like he starts on 35. He concedes 3. I would back this player. It's Ferdinand Oswald for anyone who wants to buy him. He'll be on the market as soon as this stream's done. He's going to go down to 15. I think a fair few times. His team aren't very good. And obviously then you concede the 3 goals, which is worth 9 points. So you're going down to 9. How much work is he doing there to chase his way back up to 45? Which is, kind of where you can sort of rescue it as a goalkeeper who didn't have a good game, conceded a couple goals. Even from 15, you can get back to sort of 35 with a bonus. This is going to be really tough for this goalkeeper in particular, but for anyone of his ilk that plays on a bad team.
Yeah, your bad goalkeepers are now turning into sort of lineup killers, aren't they? I think. Like, if you look at Oswald as an example, like prior to the new Matrix changes, he had 1 score below 20 in his last 40. And if you look at him with the new Matrix, he's now got 7 scores below 20 in his last 40. And if you have a player that scores below 20, it's not a good look for your lineup, is it? So I think you're going to find more bad goalkeepers are becoming lineup killers. To be honest, like, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Like, I can sort of get people that are predominantly playing to chase the threshold being upset about that, and not thinking that's a great change because it impacts them more than anyone else. But I think I think a couple of things. The first thing is that anything to change goalkeepers away from the sort of generic 35 or 60 score, like basically on the old matrix, your keeper either gets 35 or 60, right? Unless there's like an outlier game where they have a bunch of AA, or by 35 or 60, I mean they score between 35 and 40, or they get about 60 points. And on the new matrix, like it looks to be scores are much more varied. Even if you just look at Oswald, he has a bunch of scores now. It looks to be a bit more varied. And the second thing is that I sort of get making it harder to get threshold for Sorare as a business, like without meaning to sound like harsh or anything, but it's their business. They are here to make a fair game, and I think for a long time people have been able to get thresholds very easily. Like you can play your common goalkeeper. You can play your two defenders, your one midfielder, one forward, and your defenders sort of churn A no matter what the score. And these changes look to me to have been brought in to, one, give the scoring matrix a bit of variety, especially when it comes to goalkeepers, and two, to add a bit more of a challenge to sort of generating your ETH returns via the threshold.
Yeah. Sounds fair enough to me, to be honest. It's better that than increasing the actual threshold for the points to be achieved.
Exactly.
I think that's probably... lesser of two evils, I suppose, if they do need to make it more competitive, if it is just too easy to access.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm looking at this from my perspective as well. Again, I've got the ability to field basically two rare teams. They're not showstoppers at all. They've never won a tier 3 even rare card. I mean, I was actually 0.3 points off that this week, so that would have been the the win. But never mind. But yeah, I'm looking at the teams. I'm like, well, can they still get to 250 even with Oswald dropping a stinker? And the answer is probably yes, because I have, Wilmar Barrios, who is a pretty consistent as a captain, will probably get me somewhere between 70 and 90 points. And he can usually make up the shortfall, even if Oswald now looks like a common keeper in terms of his score. So it's not impossible. It's just like you need to upgrade the other players ever so slightly. And of course, we know that from some of the scoring matrix changes elsewhere, players like Barrios actually may benefit from this. Like I think hasn't he just been given an extra point for every interception he makes, which is brilliant.
Jules,
for Wilmar Barrios. Jules, yeah. He's benefiting in other ways. So there's a shortfall that you can kind of make up from a different perspective. And of course, the forward now gets an interception. Now, I think, Quinny, you were talking last night. Can't think of anyone that really does a lot of that. But there might be an absolute workhorse pressing forward somewhere on this planet that, does 3 interceptions a game, and we're going to find him really soon. It might be someone in Brazil. That's a very defensive league. It's going to be somewhere, and he'll become the go-to. There's just different ways to do it. It has knock-on and ripple effects. You just got to figure out how to play the game again. It's good to keep it fresh, in my opinion.
I think I think Griezmann was the number 1 in Europe for interceptions, actually captured as a score point, So I don't think, there's going to be too many of them. The first person my mind went to was Rio Hatate, because he's kind of even a mid. But I think it's maybe some more of those cheat code position cards that might benefit from that scoring change. But I was actually just thinking, I just want to kind of put this in as a little kind of side note, just as we're moving away from it. But with the goalkeepers, one of the things they did say was that they wanted 80 plus to be more achievable. I'm looking at, probably my number 1 goalkeeper for this season, Joe Hart. If anyone should now be 80 plus capable, he's probably one of those contenders. And he's still not got an 80 plus score to his name in his SO5, even with these amazingly positive scores. His what would that be? The 60 to 70 range has went down, and then the 70 to 80 range goes up a little bit. But if their goal with the goalkeeper changes was to maybe make 80 plus more achievable, I even think with like a really, really good option that's still not, I still can't imagine him getting 80. Not that that's a problem, anyone should care about me and Joe Hart, but like if it's number 1 kind of hurting the lower end goalkeepers, and then number 2 not even really doing what it's meant to do for like goalkeepers that do get a clean sheet, make a lot of passes, play the ball up the pitch and whatever, then it's not really doing either job. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in just as we're kind of going into midfield and forward. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually think that Josh's point. Sorry, Josh. I think his point about creating more variety and more of a spectrum on the goalkeeper scores is really important, and it's basically the big benefit to the game. So rare sometimes just don't help themselves when they say stuff like that, and then it doesn't actually happen. Like they probably just threw that in because it's a nice thing to say on a press release, and really they're just trying to diversify the scoring matrix, as Josh has kind of explained instead. And remember when they did the big baseball announcement and someone said it was going to be 25% football, and then everyone got pissed off. Like it's they do this sort of thing. So like they don't really help themselves in that area. Joe Hart doesn't get 80. Someone will somewhere. Didn't someone score 2 goals? So a goalkeeper scored 2 goals.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah,
he's in the 80 range. He's in the 100. But the variety I think is probably the most important thing there, as Josh says.
Yeah, fair play.
I think just a very last touch on goalkeepers. I think your point about Hart is a really good one, but I think he's never really got a setup to be a high AA GK just because he doesn't face that many shots. So I think the goalkeepers that are going to, like, he's obviously going to benefit from keeping a load of clean sheets, which is still absolutely great, and it's the one thing you should be looking for with a goalkeeper. But the 2 goalkeepers that I were looking at that I thought did benefit from the matrix changes, one was Lars Unnestal and the other was Davy Rofe, so goalkeepers from Twente and Ghent. And the reason that the new matrix helps them is because when they do keep the clean sheets and make their usual AA saves, they do get past 80. If you look at Unnestal's graph, he goes from, on the old matrix, having only 1 score above 80 in his last 40 to 3 scores above 80 in his last 40. Similar with Rofe. He already had 2 scores above 80, but the peaks do get a little bit higher for the goalkeepers, and I think it's mainly down to those sort of more active higher AA goalkeepers rather than your dominant team clean sheet goalkeeper. I'd still rather have the dominant team clean sheet goalkeeper with the new changes.
Yeah, fair enough. And I've just went to look at Oblak. He's gained 380 pluses, and again, he didn't have that many clean sheets last year, so that definitely stands what you're saying up there, Joshy. Yep. So fair play.
Oblak has got to be. He can't be any worse this year than he was last year.
He's not.
So, with the scoring matrix and a general correction on form, I do wonder if Oblak is a candidate to make an absolutely massive jump. It's the sort of hunch I'd love to be able to back, but I unfortunately can't afford to do it because even in his bad moments, he's still obviously a pretty prime option.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I was just going to say there, sorry, I was being rude and stepping on Josh's toes, was is there any like cheat code position cards that you've got in your gallery that you think all of a sudden might be a bit more capable than what they were the day before yesterday?
That's a really good question.
That is a good question. I think generally speaking, a defensive midfielders or sort of like dual hungry midfield, they're getting a bit of a boost, aren't they? Overall, as long as they play for a relatively strong side, of course. But yeah, I think my Wilmar Barrios just got even better, and it's possible my Wallace from Udinese is now just a touch better as well. But really, it's Thierry Correa from Valencia who, he actually did put up some really good scores playing right back for Valencia. He's a really good player, but of course, a fullback's floor was very low. Right, the ceiling was often quite good, but the floor was terrible if it went all wrong, and that was persistent with Hakimi and everyone else as well. So I wonder if maybe he's got a higher floor and an even higher ceiling, and that's quite fun. He's under 23 as well for 1 more year, so that's quite interesting.
Nice. I like Correa.
I think I don't have too many. I think you're sort of alluding to the guys where like they've got a defender card, but they actually play midfield, right? Rather than the only one I have, I think, is probably like John Goric Stankovic Super Rare, which is a defender that he plays CDM. Not quite sure how that's going to translate. I haven't really looked at it. The ones that I'm most excited about from my gallery, just from like on an actual basis, is Daley Blind. I think just gets better as long as he continues to start for Ajax. His peaks look like they get higher, which is nice. And then the other Ajax fullbacks I have Divine Wrench and Owen Wijndal, I think should also be good. We'll see. But those are the. It seems weird to be still talking about defenders, but those Ajax fullbacks I think could still be good.
Well, that's Ajax for you. They're untouchable. I did note, actually, there was one guy in my gallery, I don't know why I have him, Raheem Edwards. He's a left-back.
Great shout.
LA Galaxy. I think he generally got like on the L5, L15, L40, he got like a 2 to 3 point increase. And he's obviously a forward card, but playing as a fullback. And then I went and looked at a couple of others as well. Ansgar Knauf at Frankfurt got the same 2 to 3 point buff, and Quentin Merlin as well at Nantes, who's obviously a striker, forward card playing wing back. he has the same thing. So that might be the correlation, is that forwards playing as wing backs and forwards playing as fullbacks have basically picked up on average 2 to 3 points, which of course that's your average. If you then play it on the matchup and obviously go game to game, that can actually be quite a big difference.
I agree. I'm looking at your Raheem Edwards now. So he's, for anyone who isn't familiar, he's been mainly playing left back for Galaxy this year. And so on the new matrix, so on the old matrix, he's got 10 scores of between 30 and 40 as a forward card, scored as a forward, playing left back. Same scenario on the new matrix. Of those 10 scores, it goes down to 7. And then that's 3 scores it pushes up into... there's one in the 40 to 50, one in the 50 to 60, and one in the 70 to 80 range. So 3 really positive. So that's what happens to those scores. I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, I think anyone in that who's just playing completely out of position. But yeah, I mean, they were benefiting anyway from the fact that they're probably giving the ball away 15 times a game, but not getting penalised with 15 points. But now it seems like they've got even better, which I don't think was the objective of the Matrix at all. But is what it is.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Raheem Edwards. I'm hoping the same for Rio Hatate myself. I've got like 2 defender cards. I've got 2 defenders, 2 midfielders, and 2 forwards of Hatate for this season. So
how has he managed
hoping
to get
one of them works.
How does he get a card in every position?
Because he's the GOAT, mate. He's the Japanese Modric.
Deary me.
Wait till you see Rio season is happening. It's coming with a bang.
Yeah, I was a little tempted to pick up the Super Arrow. I've got the only Celtic Super I have is Callum McGregor. So on the short, if there are any short weeks for Celtic and I want to run a full stack in D3, I'd probably need the Super Arrow from somewhere. So I was tempted to pick one of his Celtic defender cards up, but I couldn't. From his historic scores, I couldn't really justify the 0.8 that people were asking. So I don't know. Maybe I've made a mistake there, but we shall see. Hey, Quinny, we shall see.
That's it. So, in the aftermath of all this, guys, do you think you are needing to do massive surgery to your situation with any of your teams in particular, or do you think it's kind of a non-event in that sense?
No, I'm not too worried. To be honest, I don't. Like I said, I don't really think it's going to be massive in your scoring changes, and I already have the goalkeepers is the one thing I'd be worried about because you can, like I say, I think you can kill more lineups with having subpar goalkeepers now. Luckily, I'm in a position where I don't have too many subpar goalkeepers, which is obviously nice for me, but might not be the same for everyone. Might not be the same for Sam. Bless him.
No, I think I have to do something about this. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a total disaster. Like I said, I think I can make up this rare team I have is built as a threshold chasing team, and it doesn't usually scrape 250. It usually hits 280 or 290, and last week it hit 340. So it's not like I'm now facing a deficit which is going to knock me down one threshold. But given how poorly the market kind of reacts on a general basis to these things and how last minute they seem to be. I do think that I can probably, once this weekend's lineup is locked in with Oswald, I can probably sell him next week for I don't know, 500-600 quid and just reassess that scenario. I probably can do something about it. It's not urgent, but I think I should.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What about you, Quinny? Have you got any? You making any changes?
I'm kind of stuck to what I've got now. I'm just kind of hold on tight and let's go for the ride. Kind of at this point, I'm just waiting for the roller coaster to tip over the edge.
I mean, I thought I was done with this nosing around in the rare goalkeeper market. I got this. I sorted this 2 months ago. I was the one that was prepared. I sorted all this. I reacted to the announcements. I sort of rolled my sleeves up. I managed to make sure I got 2 goalkeepers, 1 champion, 1 challenger. 1 has Europe, so has midweek. I've got the ability to play All-Star for the 2 weeks before Premier League kicks in. A threshold chasing too. I was prepared, and they ruined it. They rug pulled me, and now I have to. I was really looking forward to never having to look at this again, and now I have to look at this again. Limited, I'm okay because I actually have good goalkeepers in limited. That's the difference. I've got Galashi at Leipzig, who remains solid on a very strong team, gets a lot of clean sheets, or should do at least. If Tedesco's back out for least last season is anything to go by, I'm not worried by that at all. He probably only gets stronger. Diogo Costa is in an even better position. Stingy Sergio Conceição in charge, defensively conscious manager, top team, midweeks. That's obviously a really good position to be in. I do have a Keylor Navas who I'm just waiting to move on. He's mostly there for the World Cup, but we'll see. But I'm not really worried about the limited one, or at least I've got the right cards in place that benefits me. It's mostly in the rare bit, which is the killer, that is a problem for me.
Yeah, I think I made my first foray into limited last weekend, Quinny, as you know. Dreams of winning the Specialist Limited and walking away with a star rare. Marvin Hitz conceded an 87th minute goal to wipe out his clean sheet, so I actually got a tier 2 limited, which I managed to sell for £2.33. And I've since lost money on the players I bought as well to make the team. So have I? Oh, I might not have done actually, because I sold Sesko for more. So maybe I didn't. I think I might have broke even actually, lads.
Thanks to that,
because I sold Sesko for more. So I bought Sesko for 0.265 and sold him for 0.28. But yeah, no, I definitely have lost money on the players that I bought, because Hits has gone down a lot more than the difference on that, and Wendell did as well. So yeah, it wasn't it felt to me like, when you're on FIFA and they give you like this is like taking it way back, like I don't know, but they gave you the option of when you finished your FUT Champions to take the packs or the untradables or the coins or whatever. Like playing Specialist Limited feels a bit like taking the untradable packs to me. It feels like a bit of a chase to like try and win like, your amazing card, but realistically it just doesn't happen very often. So yeah, maybe I'll give up on that. Though I have got together. Well, I haven't bought it yet, but I have got a list of a team I'd like to build for this week if I do decide to go again.
Nice. I'm quite surprised you tried to sell, especially like Sesko in that, because some of those guys I thought you might have held on to for at least in our couple of games. Surely they're just as good next week as they were this week.
Yeah, I mean, he goes.
No?
The reason I had Sesko was because his L15 was below 40. And it still is. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Quinny. I probably should have just held on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other guys, like Marwin Hitz, like his L15 went above 40. So I'm not really interested in the goalkeeper that has an L15 above 40. So yeah, that was the reason. But yeah, I probably should have held Sesko. I did not realise that his state. He scored 80, so I just sort of presumed that his L15 would go above 40 without really checking. So yeah, my bad on that one.
At least you made a profit.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Could be worse. I'm reluctant to get involved in those in the specialist ones, because for the exact reason that Josh has basically just described. I don't want to get stuck with 4 cards that didn't win me anything and now are worth less money. I can't really carry that. I've already got about 40 cards that I'd love to get rid of, but I'm waiting for their price to come back up again from where I bought them. So I don't want to add to the pile. But the good thing about having all those cards that are now rubbish and you bought wrongly is that they're all eligible for underdog, because they're all rubbish. So then you just put them all in the underdog, and maybe one day I win a card worth £2 like Josh.
Yeah, you never know, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe. I do think that's a harsh one though for you, though, mate. On the tier 2 worth £2, because a couple of weeks ago, America Limited, I got a tier 3 and I sold it for £12. So,
oh really? I have no idea what the limited market's about. So I don't. Maybe I don't think I undersold it. What was? Let me have a look. So it was Oscar Valentin.
I know that name.
Yeah, I do know that name.
Oscar Valentin.
Yeah.
From Rayo Vallecano. Oh, great one. Absolutely nails it. And yeah, I've sold
things.
So I actually sold him slightly above the last auction as well. It seems it seems like a fair price for him. But yeah, crazy low value. I imagine the pool's been calculated on his 0.004 price, which was his auction on the 16th of July, which still seems low for a T2, but there you go. We roll with it.
Yeah, maybe. Mine was a Fortaleza striker. So forward card and Fortaleza, I think, are still in the Copa Libertadores, maybe. So they've got some midweek action. So you've got a couple things there propping him up. He's not very good. That's the big drawback. So that's why I got rid of him immediately. But he's got a couple of things there that make people more interested. It holds his price up a bit. So I think you might have just got a bit unlucky there, mate.
Yeah. Seems to have been a theme with my rewards.
I think the limited market's as crazy as a bag of frogs. It's hard to get a handle on it in terms of like with rares and super rares and stuff like that. Like people will draw a line and go, well, this guy's now as good as Trent, for example, so that kind of player is normally like this kind of price, but limited is just, it really just depends on how many traders are in there undercutting each other that day, and you go to the market and average your guy's £3 because there's 10 guys in there that have got 5 of them each and they're all trying to make 50p profit on them, and sometimes and then your guy, Fortaleza guy, might just be totally different. Just everyone who's in there is playing him with underdog and he's a good card this week for some reason and he goes for 12 quid.
Yep.
It's just crazy. Limiteds.
Yeah, I think the volatility in the market,
I've not won that many big,
makes it sort of like, I do actually find it quite appealing to trade in, especially with your generic. I don't see how you can lose with your generic injury comebacks. Like Carl Starfelt is one at the minute whose price is just continuing to go down. I don't imagine he starts at the weekend, so probably goes down even further. At the minute, the last auction was 0.115 and he's got all-time highs of 0.185. So, if he comes back in and starts the weekend after, I don't really see how he doesn't rebound up to 0.15 or something on his limited. It just seems, I just think it seems like an easy ETH gain. But obviously, who knows what could happen.
I always get nervous about action and moves like that rely on the market doing something because you're just in no control of it at all. And it gives me the fear spending money on stuff like that. I'm always much more confident with getting stuff kind of like what Sam's saying. I wouldn't I've played specialists quite a lot over the summer, I suppose, but more often than not, the players I bring in are hopefully kind of guys I'd maybe buy anyway for limited for a £5 or for a £10. And so I'm not I have sold some guys that I've bought in. I've won a few rewards and a lot of them have been very nominal value. But I think with these divisions, because it is so fiercely competitive, it is just Tekkers. I don't know how often Tekkers has really played limited. He's obviously done amazing. We're coming in first in that specialist after kind of talking the big game. And you've come in first this week as well. But I don't think limited really is that kind of competition where we see in rare and rare pro level, you'll get as frequent consistent wins, especially in these tricky divisions, because there is just so many moving parts around them.
Yeah, there's a lot more variance.
It's kind of one of those ones.
There's just a lot more variance involved. More people can have more cards, so therefore, more entrants, more variants, more higher scores required, that sort of thing. So yeah, it definitely is. It is harder to consistently win unless you have unlimited budget, in which case you can just buy the best players for every situation, which obviously not many people do.
There's probably going to be more keepers L50 under 40 now as well, which is good for the market. So the silver lining and all that,
Yeah, absolutely. No, that would be handy, actually. I think there's 4 eligible options I wanted to go with this weekend. So, yes, not that much to choose from.
After game week 300, there'll be 40.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Well, guys, listen, thanks a lot for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to game week 292. I wish both of you guys the best of luck. Hopefully, because you've been back on the channel, Sam, that will reignite that wee bit of kind of luck from last time, and the Dynamo guys will go and spank it again for you. And Josh, I hope to see you nowhere near me on any challenger podiums or anything like that, buddy. Hope you're not ahead of me, is what I mean to say. 1 point behind me, buddy.
That'll do me. As long as you're first, I suppose. That'll do me.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Thanks, Quinny.
Let's get into all the giveaway stuff before I let you go. I'm still doing monthly giveaways and I'm making it easier to enter. If you want to be entered to win this month's prize or any future giveaways here at the channel, all the same rules will always apply. Hit the subscribe button, you need to be a subscriber to enter, then leave a comment down below. Each month, a random comment from a random video will be selected as the winner, so the more videos you leave a comment on, the better the chance you've got of winning any of my giveaways. All the winners are announced at the end of videos the same way as we're doing here. The best way to keep up with the content has always been to hit the notification bell with all notifications turned on. As always, guys, if you've enjoyed the video today, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button. On screen now is some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Stay out of trouble, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.